The maintenance bay of Station K-117 hummed with the familiar symphony of machinery that Zalthan had grown accustomed to over his 30 cycles as a ship mechanic. His four-fingered hands moved with practiced precision over the quantum drive housing of his personal vessel, the Starcutter, while his bioluminescent markings cast a soft blue glow across the metallic surface. The independent mechanic's reputation for fixing the unfixable had made him both wealthy and careful. The Valkyrian's tall, angular frame bore the scars of countless repairs, each one a testament to lessons learned the hard way. His crystalline eyes, capable of seeing deep into the electromagnetic spectrum, detected an anomalous heat signature in the cargo hold, one that shouldn't have been there. "Computer, run diagnostic sweep of Cargo Bay 3. Zalthan commanded, his dual-toned voice resonating against the hull. The response came back negative. No mechanical faults, no system irregularities. But Zalthan hadn't survived this long by ignoring his instincts. He secured his tools and made his way to the cargo hold, each step measured and silent despite his imposing height. The heat signature grew stronger, and with it came something else. The faint sound of breathing. Zalthan's bioluminescent markings dimmed automatically, an evolutionary response to potential danger. "Whoever's there," he called out, "know that this ship's defense systems are armed and fully operational." A lie. The Starcutter's weapons were powered down for maintenance, but bluffing was another survival skill he'd mastered. The response was unexpected. A small sneeze, followed by a scrambling sound behind one of the cargo containers. Zalthan moved with surprising speed for his size, rounding the container to find something he'd never expected to see on his ship, a human child. She couldn't have been more than 8 standard years old, with dark skin and hair woven into intricate patterns. Her clothes were makeshift, fashioned from what looked like discarded maintenance coveralls. But it was her eyes that caught Zalthan's attention. They held no fear, only a calculating intelligence that seemed far beyond her years. "Your quantum manifold is misaligned by 0.3 degrees, she said matter-of-factly, her voice steady despite her precarious situation. "That's why you're getting power fluctuations in the lower decks." Zalthan's outer eyelids flickered in surprise. The manifold misalignment was something he'd been tracking for days, trying to isolate the cause. "How long have you been on my ship?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. 17 days, she replied, slowly standing up. "I've been careful not to take too much, just enough water and emergency rations to survive. I can pay you back by helping with repairs. I'm good with machines." The absurdity of the situation wasn't lost on Zalthan. Here was a human child, somehow having evaded every security system on his ship, offering to work as a mechanic. The rational response would be to alert station security immediately. Instead, he found himself asking, "What's your name?" "Sarah," she answered, then added with a slight lift of her chin, "And I'm not going back. They'll kill me if they find me." "They?" Zalthan's markings pulsed with interest. Before Sarah could answer, the station's alert system blared to life. "Attention all vessels. Security sweep in progress. Mandatory scanning of all ships for unauthorized life forms. Compliance is non-negotiable." Zalthan saw the girl tense, ready to bolt. In that moment, he made a decision that would change both their lives forever. "The maintenance shaft behind you," he said quickly. "It's shielded from basic bioscans. Get in, stay quiet, and we'll discuss that quantum manifold issue after the sweep." Sarah's eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't hesitate. As she disappeared into the shaft, Zalthan began powering up his ship's systems. He had no idea why he was helping her, but something about her reminded him of himself at that age. An outsider, surviving by wit and skill alone. The sound of armored boots on metal echoed from the docking collar. As Zalthan prepared to face the security team, he realized his peaceful life as a simple mechanic had just become significantly more complicated. But looking at the maintenance shaft where Sarah hid, he couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. Whatever trouble the girl was in, whatever was hunting her, they would have to go through him first. And anyone who knew Zalthan's reputation could tell you that was no small obstacle to overcome. The security sweep had left Zalthan's nerves on edge, but his external demeanor remained calm as he guided the Starcutter away from station K117. His crystalline eyes fixed on the navigation display, watching as the massive station grew smaller behind them. Only when they were safely in deep space did he finally speak. "They're looking for you specifically," he said, not a question but a statement. The security team's scan patterns had been too precise, too focused. Why? Sarah emerged from the maintenance shaft, her small frame covered in engineering grease. She'd been true to her word about the quantum manifold. He'd found it repaired with remarkable precision after the security team left. "Because I'm different," she answered, moving to stand beside him at the console. "I can see things, how machines work, how they could work better." Zalthan's bioluminescent markings flickered with interest as she reached toward the navigation console. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease, making minute adjustments. The ship's engine hum shifted almost imperceptibly, becoming smoother, more efficient. "You just optimized my nav systems in seconds," he observed, checking the readouts. "Without any formal training in Valkyrian technology." His outer eyelids flickered. "That's not just being good with machines." Sarah's shoulders tensed. "It's why they want me back. The Institute. They made me this way. They're making others too. But it hurts, and some of the others." She trailed off, her small hands clenching into fists. "I couldn't stay. I wouldn't let them finish the procedures." Zalthan felt his protective instincts surge. The Institute. He'd heard whispers about their experimental research facilities, but nothing concrete. How many others? Dozens, maybe hundreds. They keep us separated, but I could hear them sometimes, through the walls. She looked up at him, her dark eyes holding a wisdom far beyond her years. "They're trying to make humans who can interface directly with alien technology. They say it's for peace, for better understanding between species. But they're lying." A warning alarm blared suddenly, cutting through their conversation. Zalthan's hands flew across the console as 3 ships dropped out of hyperspace behind them. Sleek, black vessels bearing no identification markers. "Institute Recovery Team," Sarah whispered, fear creeping into her voice for the first time. "They found us." Zalthan's markings pulsed with determination. "No," he corrected, engaging the Starcutter's enhanced drive systems. "They found my ship, and nobody knows her capabilities better than I do." The pursuing vessels opened fire, energy beams slicing through space where the Starcutter had been moments before. But Zalthan was already moving, his ship responding to his commands with practiced precision. Sarah gripped the console, watching in amazement as the veteran mechanic pushed his vessel to its limits. "The particle accelerator in your weapons system," she said suddenly, her eyes taking on a distant look. "If you reverse the polarity and feed it through the deflector array." Zalthan understood immediately. It was insane, completely against every safety protocol, and exactly what they needed. "Do it," he commanded, tossing her the engineering access codes. Sarah's fingers flew across the engineering station, making modifications that should have taken hours in mere minutes. The ship shuddered as the pursuing vessels landed another hit, but Zalthan held course. "Ready," Sarah announced, just as the enemy ships moved to surround them. Zalthan's crystalline eyes gleamed. "Hold on." He triggered the modified system, and a massive electromagnetic pulse erupted from the Starcutter, catching all 3 pursuit vessels in its radius. Their systems went dark, leaving them drifting helplessly in space. As they made their escape, Zalthan looked at his young companion with new appreciation. She wasn't just a refugee. She was a prodigy, one whose abilities could revolutionize spacecraft engineering, or, in the wrong hands, change the balance of power throughout known space. "We need to find somewhere safe," he said, already calculating possible destinations. somewhere off the normal trade routes. Sarah nodded, her small frame finally relaxing slightly. I can help keep the ship running, she offered. Make improvements. Pay my way. You already have, Zalthan replied, his markings glowing with a gentle warmth. But first, we need to talk about proper maintenance schedules and safety protocols. If you're going to be my apprentice, we'll do things right. Sarah's eyes lit up at the word apprentice, and for the first time since he'd discovered her, a genuine smile crossed her face. As they plotted their course into unknown space, Zalthan realized that somehow this strange human child had begun to fill a void in his life he hadn't even known existed. The Starcutter carried them deeper into the frontier, leaving behind the Institute's hunters and carrying its unlikely crew toward whatever destiny awaited them among the stars. 2 months had transformed the Starcutter's engine room from a pristine workspace into what Zalthan could only describe as an organized chaos. Sarah's innovations were everywhere, jury-rigged improvements and modifications that somehow worked better than the original systems. The Valkyrian mechanic had to admit, his ship had never run more efficiently. But tonight, something was wrong. He found Sarah in her usual spot beneath the quantum core, but instead of working, she was curled into a tight ball, shaking. His bioluminescent markings dimmed with concern. Sarah. His dual-tone voice echoed softly against the hull. She didn't respond immediately. When she finally looked up, her face was streaked with tears. More alarming were the faint blue lines tracing beneath her skin, pulsing with an eerily familiar glow, one that matched his own bioluminescent markings. "It's happening again," she whispered, her voice strained. "The changes. I thought they'd stop once I escaped." Zalthan knelt beside her, his crystalline eyes scanning her vital signs. Her temperature was elevated, and there were strange energy signatures emanating from her body, signatures that shouldn't be possible in a human. "Tell me everything," he said gently, "from the beginning." Sarah took a shuddering breath. The Institute, they weren't just teaching us to understand alien technology. They were trying to merge it with us, changing our DNA, introducing synthetic components. She held up her trembling hands, where the blue lines were spreading. They called it the Synthesis Project. They wanted to create humans who could interface with any alien technology, who could become part of it. Zalthan's outer eyelids flickered rapidly as the implications hit him. The precision of her repairs, her instant understanding of complex systems. It wasn't just natural talent. You're not just reading the machines, he realized. You're connecting with them, becoming one with them. She nodded miserably. But it hurts, and it's getting stronger. Some of the others, the ones further along in the program, they lost themselves, became more machine than human. I ran away before they could finish the process. But, she gestured to the glowing lines. It's still changing me. Before Zalthan could respond, the ship's proximity alarm blared. He rushed to the nearest console, Sarah following despite her condition. The readings made his heart sink. A massive Institute vessel had dropped out of hyperspace directly ahead of them. How did they find us? Sarah's voice was tight with fear. The answer hit Zalthan like a physical blow. Your energy signature. It's unique. They must have developed a way to track it. He turned to her, markings pulsing with determination. But if they want you, they'll have to go through me first. The ship's comm system crackled to life. Attention, Starcutter. This is Director Kane of the Synthesis Project. Return our property immediately, or we will take it by force. Sarah flinched at the word property, but Zalthan's response was immediate. She's not property, Kane. She's a child. My apprentice. And you're not taking her anywhere. You don't understand what you're interfering with. Kane's voice was cold. That child is the culmination of decades of research. The perfect bridge between organic and mechanical life. She belongs to us. I belong to myself, Sarah shouted, her fear giving way to anger. The blue lines under her skin blazed brighter, and suddenly every system on the Starcutter responded. Displays flickered, engines hummed, and the ship itself seemed to come alive around them. Zelthan watched in amazement as Sarah placed her hands on the main console. Her eyes glowed with the same blue light that coursed through her veins. "The ship," she gasped. "I can feel all of it. Every system, every circuit." Her voice took on a strange, harmonious quality, as if the ship itself was speaking through her. "And I can make it dance." The Starcutter moved with impossible grace, its systems operating at levels Zelthan had never thought possible. Energy weapons materialized from hidden compartments, modifications Sarah had been secretly installing over the past 2 months. "Last warning, Kane." His voice hard. "Leave us alone, or face the consequences." The Institute ship responded by powering up its weapons, but Sarah was already moving. Her consciousness merged with the Starcutter systems. The ship's new weapons fired in perfect synchronization, targeting points that only someone intimately connected with the ship's systems could have identified. As the Institute vessel reeled from the precision strikes, Zelthan realized the true magnitude of what the Institute had created and what they had lost. Sarah wasn't just their experiment. She was the future of human-alien relations, but not in the way they had intended. Not as a weapon or a tool, but as a bridge between worlds. The battle was brief but decisive. When it was over, the Institute ship limped away, its primary systems crippled. Sarah collapsed, exhausted but smiling. The blue lines faded from her skin, but Zelthan knew they would return. The changes couldn't be stopped, but perhaps they could be guided, understood, embraced. "Rest now," he said, gathering her small form in his arms. "We have much to discuss about these modifications you've been making to my ship." Sarah managed a weak grin. "Our ship," she corrected him. "After all, I'm your apprentice, remember." Zelthan's markings pulsed with affection. "Yes," he agreed. "Though I'm beginning to think I'm learning as much from you as you are from me." The repair dock on Outpost Zephyr was exactly the kind of place Zelthan preferred, remote, discreet, and willing to ignore paperwork for the right price. The Starcutter's recent battle had left it in need of serious maintenance, and Sarah's enhanced systems required specialized parts that couldn't be fabricated on board. Zelthan watched as Sarah slept in the makeshift medical bay he'd constructed. The episodes were becoming more frequent, moments when her human form struggled to contain the technological evolution happening within her. But she was adapting, learning to control the changes rather than being controlled by them. A notification flashed on his comm unit. The parts dealer was ready with their order. "Stay here," he told Sarah's sleeping form. "I'll be back soon." The outpost's marketplace was a maze of stalls and shops, thick with the smell of plasma exhaust and machine oil. Zelthan's crystalline eyes scanned the crowds carefully, a habit born from 2 months of constant vigilance. Something felt wrong, but he couldn't place what. The parts dealer, a 6-armed Centaurian named Vex, waited in his usual spot. Interesting shopping list. Vex chittered, his mandibles clicking. Quantum stabilizers, neural interfaces, biosynthetic coupling units. Building something special. "Just routine maintenance," Zelthan replied evenly, transferring the credits. But as he reached for the parts, he noticed Vex's eyes dart nervously toward the doorway. The Valkyrian's markings dimmed instantly. A trap. The explosion came from behind, throwing him forward. Institute forces poured into the shop, their weapons trained on him. At their head stood Director Kane, looking exactly as cold and calculating as he had sounded over the comms. "I must admit, you've led us on quite a chase," Kane said, stepping forward. His cybernetic eye whirred as it focused on Zelthan. "But did you really think we'd let our most successful subject slip away? That we wouldn't have agents in every port, watching for the unique parts her condition requires?" Zelthan rose slowly, his hands raised. "She's not your subject anymore. She's a person, a child with rights, and she's the future." Kane cut him off. "The perfect synthesis of organic and mechanical. And once we complete the process, she'll be the template for a new generation of enhanced humans. Think of it, a workforce that can interface directly with any technology in the galaxy. The military applications alone are exactly why she ran. Zalthan growled. You're not creating understanding between species. You're building weapons. Kane smiled thinly. The girl is already aboard our ship. Surrender now, and we might let you live, considering your unique relationship with the subject. Your engineering skills could be valuable to the project. Zalthan's markings pulsed once, brightly, a warning. You shouldn't have taken her from my ship. Oh, Kane raised an eyebrow. And why is that? Because Zalthan's voice carried a hint of pride. I taught her about proper maintenance schedules and safety protocols, including the importance of always having a backup plan. The lights throughout the outpost suddenly went dark. Emergency sirens blared as systems began to fail in cascading waves. Through the shop's window, Zalthan could see the Institute's ship powering down, its systems going dark one by one. Station-wide electromagnetic pulse, he explained to the stunned director. Sarah's been modifying the outpost's systems since we arrived, just in case. Chaos erupted as the Institute forces weapons and cybernetic enhancements failed. Zalthan moved with surprising speed for his size, disabling 3 guards before they could switch to backup systems. He'd spent decades working with technology. He knew exactly where to strike to keep it from working. Through the confusion, he heard Sarah's voice over the outpost's comm system. I got out of their ship, Rizal. All their systems are locked down, but their backup power will be online in 3 minutes. Good girl, Zalthan muttered, delivering a precise blow to Kane's cybernetic leg that sent the director sprawling. Get back to the Star Cutter and prep for emergency launch. Already done. Her voice held a note of excitement that, despite the situation, made him worry about what modifications she might have made in his absence. Zalthan fought his way through the darkened corridors, using his natural night vision, while his human pursuers stumbled blind. The Institute forces had clearly grown too reliant on their technology. Without it, they were at a severe disadvantage against a Valkyrian warrior-cased mechanic. He reached the Starcutter's docking bay, just as emergency power began to restore systems throughout the station. Sarah had the engines hot and ready, the ship humming with energy in a way that both impressed and terrified him. What did you do to my ship this time? He asked as he rushed into the cockpit. Sarah grinned, her skin faintly glowing with those now familiar blue lines. Remember how you said the power core could theoretically handle a 30% overcharge? Well, I figured out how to make it 40. We are going to have a long talk about unauthorized modifications, Zalthan said sternly, even as he admired the enhanced engine readings. After we get out of here. The Star Cutter burst from its docking bay like a plasma round from a railgun, leaving the outpost and the Institute forces far behind. As they prepared to jump to hyperspace, Sarah looked up at Zalthan with worried eyes. They'll keep coming, won't they? Zalthan's markings pulsed with gentle reassurance. Yes, but we'll be ready. Together. The ancient space station Nexus Prime floated like a tarnished jewel against the backdrop of twin dying stars. Its twisting corridors and shadowy chambers had served as a haven for outcasts for centuries. Now, Zalthan hoped, it would serve as their final sanctuary. The Star Cutter docked in a secluded bay, its systems powering down to minimal levels. 3 months of running had taken their toll on both ship and crew. But it had also forged something unexpected, a bond stronger than either of them had anticipated. The Council will see us now, Zalthan said, adjusting his formal robes. The station's governing body, a collection of species who had rejected their respective societies, rarely granted audiences, but they had a proposition that might interest them. Sarah nodded, straightening her own clothes, a custom-made outfit that accommodated the now permanent bioluminescent patterns flowing beneath her skin. She no longer tried to hide them. They were part of who she was, just as Zalthan's markings were part of him. The council chamber was vast, its circular walls lined with representatives from dozens of species. Some were organic, others mechanical, and many fell somewhere in between. Here, perhaps more than anywhere else in the galaxy, Sarah's unique nature might be understood. "Approach," a synthesized voice commanded. A figure emerged from the shadows. An ancient android housing the collective consciousness of the council. "State your purpose." Exalthan stepped forward, his markings glowing with formal respect. "We seek asylum, and we offer knowledge in return. My apprentice represents something unprecedented, a natural bridge between organic and mechanical life. Not through force or experimentation, but through understanding and choice." Sarah moved to stand beside him, her own bioluminescence pulsing in harmony with his. The council android sensors focused on her, analyzing the complex interface between her human biology and the technological evolution she had undergone. "The Institute sought to create weapons," Sarah spoke clearly, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "But they didn't understand what they were really discovering. It's not about controlling technology or bending it to our will. It's about partnership. Synthesis." She placed her hand on the nearest console, and the chamber systems responded, displays coming alive with data streaming directly from her consciousness. "Remarkable," the android observed. "You communicate with our systems as if they were extensions of yourself." "Because they are," Sarah explained, "just as I'm an extension of them. And I can teach others not to force the connection, but to grow into it naturally. To understand technology as a partner, not a tool." The chamber erupted in murmurs and electronic exchanges as council members discussed the implications. Finally, the android raised a hand for silence. "Your proposal is intriguing, but the Institute will not abandon their pursuit easily. They will come."